Boy, have I got a treat for you today. Welcome to the Scripture Unscrolled channel, and this time we have an insightful yet often overlooked verse. Mark chapter 10, verse 45. So pull out your parchment and get ready to read. This is going to be a fun one. The King James Version renders this verse like this. Pause it, read it, do what you want, but this is a great verse all around, which captures the message of the gospel well. So how does the Latin differ? It reads, Nam et filius hominis non venit ut ministraretur ei, sed ut ministraret, et daret animam suam redemptionem pro multis. While it's identical to the King James Version at first glance, subtle double meanings give it real flavor. For example, while ministraretur and ministraret may initially be taken to mean he is ministered and he ministers respectively, the infinitive form of the verb ministrare more accurately means to serve, to tend to, or even to furnish. I like this last meaning most, as it can be used to explain that Jesus has furnished us with all the tools we need on earth. Next up, animam confuses me a bit, as it usually means soul or spirit, a thing which Jesus decidedly did not sacrifice. Before declaring this a mistranslation though, I decided to at least check on the verse in Greek, so stay tuned, loyal learner. After that, the word redemptio caught my eye. Again, we may be tempted to think it means the same thing as English redemption, but we ought to hold our horses. Redemptio comes from the verb redimere, which means to buy back or to recover. Again, this fits well with the other teachings of Jesus, that he died in order to literally take the blame for our sin and buy back our souls from sin and Satan, to which we were slaves. Now we'll come back to the Latin later, but I wanted to take a look at the Greek next. Kagarhohuios tu anthropu uk elten diakonetenai alla diakonesai kaidunai ten psikeno tu lutron antipolon. It takes longer than I'd like to admit to pronounce the Greek correctly. Anyway, the first section reads effectively the same as the Latin or English, and the first point of contention comes with the word diakonetenai. It comes from the word diakonumai and means to be served, specifically as a deacon. So this verse is saying that Jesus, though a teacher, came not to be served and helped even as the lowest priest would, but to take the place of the servant, a statement reinforced by the very next verb, diakonesai, to serve. Later, the word psyche is used to describe what Jesus gave. Much like Latin animam, it usually means soul or spirit, and we still know that Jesus did not give these things, but only his, animate existence. Oh wow, look at that. Animate existence is another definition of psyche. I guess that little problem is solved. The last little phrase, lutron antipolon, is packed with meaning. Lutron simply means ransom or price, like of a debt. Anti, meanwhile, is where we get the prefix anti and means for the sake of or in exchange for. This last one is most telling, as the next word, polon, just means many. But if we're talking about Jesus trading his animate existence in exchange for many, it begs the reasonable question, why does the Bible word it this way? We're often taught that Jesus traded his life for our souls, but the Greek makes no such claim. It specifically refers to people's incarnate being, their psyche, and this is no mistranslation. This is the original language of the Gospel of Mark. I think we've found a lost truth. The body itself can't just be a vessel for the soul, as so many churches treat it or overtly teach it, but carries meaning in the afterlife as well, so much that Jesus died to save our incarnate existence from punishment in that same afterlife. And again, this is written in the original language of the gospel. So leave a thought or an attack in the comments, and as always, seek the truth. Okay, let's take things down a few notches. Are you ready for your surprise? Okay, close your eyes, and I'm going to read a new language to you. Ready? Ибо Сына Человеческий не прийде да послужит ему, но послужит, и дати душу свою избавление за многие. That was Old Church Slavonic, written in the Codex Glagoliticus, and like the Vulgate in King James Version, it was translated from ancient Greek. However, it was used by the Orthodox Church in many Slavic countries from around 850 to 1100 AD, and has its own quirks. Let's take a look. First of all, the term Syn Человеческий translates more directly to human son instead of son of man or son of humanity. I'll release a few shorts later this week going over this more. Make sure to watch them all. Moving on, ne pride da послужita ему means did not come that they may serve him, while the following term, ne послужita, means but to serve. This is all a slight deviation from the ancient Greek, as Old Church Slavonic lacked a dedicated passive conjugation for verbs, and so translators simply restructured the sentence to be an active one, writing, they serve him, instead of the passive, he was served by them. Sorry for the little grammar lesson, but moving on. The last section too has some semantic differences, with duszą referring explicitly to one's soul, unlike the Greek, while izbawienie more accurately translates to freeing or relief, like from oppression. Lastly, za just means the same thing as Greek anti. Now don't you dare click off yet. We still need to translate all this nonsense into English. Okay, great. Let's look these over. Firstly, notice how every language says Son of Man, except for Old Church Slavonic. The more I think of it, the more it truly baffles me they chose this wording, as they definitely didn't need to. Alas, moving on, every language uses some synonym of to be served and to serve, although all in different patterns. The English verse, then, is misleading here, mostly due to the gradual semantic drift of the word to minister, to mean more like to preach instead of to serve. This kind of stuff is why I read old Bibles, though. Even in English, over just 400 years, this verse's true meaning has been obscured by a simple change in the meaning of a single word. Imagine how much has been lost since the original Greek 2,000 years ago. That's why you must subscribe, to bring these truths to light. Moving on, the English uses the word life to describe what Jesus gave. I think this is a good translation, one of the best actually, but on the other end of the spectrum, Old Church Slavonic uses a word that literally only means soul. I honestly think this is a mistranslation, as it clearly lost the meaning of the original verse. Latin gets half credit for its word choice, which only almost always means soul. These mistranslations make a lot of sense in light of what we learned today, that the word psyche can refer to either an immoral soul or a physical life. Lastly, the word ransom. In Latin, Greek, and English, synonyms of this word are used, treating Jesus' death as a necessary undertaking to grant us salvation and freedom from sin. In general, the Catholic and Protestant churches have treated Jesus' death this way, but Old Church Slavonic represents the other main tradition, the Orthodox one. To them, Jesus' death served to free us from the oppression of sin, and the emphasis is not on our current freedom, but on our duty to bear our own cross, the burden of sin and death, so we can be freed and crowned with glory even as Jesus was. Quite a difference indeed. I would talk about this difference between Eastern and Western churches more, but alas, we are out of time. So what's our takeaway for today? I would say, stick to what you know is true. We know Jesus did not lose his soul when he died, because he came right back to life. That being said, we also need an open mind. Neither I nor anybody else understands all of Scripture 100%, so a subtle difference in wording should be treated as an opportunity to learn, not as evidence of heresy or malpractice. These verses illustrate both well, in that we can identify things we know are false, but keep an open mind with those we aren't so sure of. And with that, I thank you all very much for watching, and as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and share the video. Your support is what keeps the channel strong, and I hope you leave any suggestions for future verses in the comments. Valete, videntes fideles, et iterum vos videbo.